welcome to F1 Now. In this video we're going to be giving you the review to the fantastic Spanish Grand Prix, a race that showed more competitiveness between the teams than we have seen in recent races. I want to start off by emphasizing how amazing Circuit de Catalunya was in giving us a race that had so many overtakes from front to back. In this race, we saw how much the midfield is so competitive and a step above from last year, for example. And honestly, unless you had a Red Bull car or a W14, starting at the back with the midfield in front of you would have been a nightmare trying to move up places. And a good example of that was Leclerc's SF23. So the race started pretty much as expected, with Verstappen losing off and keeping Carlos at bay in the first phase. But we did get to see some maneuvers and overtakes off the line from both Mercedes W14s. Lewis started by seeing off Lando before turn 1, but had a collision between the two which saw Lando losing part of his front wing. The collision was a result of Verstappen's defense on Carlos, which meant Carlos and Lewis had to shave off some speed on turn 2. This then dropped Lando all the way down to 17. For McLaren, it turned out that the team didn't have the pace to stay in the points, even with Piastri. Stroll, on the other hand, had some distance between him and the leading pack when this happened, which meant he had a lot of speed, allowing him to set up an overtake on Lewis from turn 4 to turn 5. The other W14 by Russell had such a great start, immediately seeing off Perez and then having a great round down to turn 1, making some great overtakes, eventually placing himself 8th by the second lap. From then on, we got to see what those W14s really have to offer. They showed great dominance over both Aston Martins and Sainz Ferrari. The Mercedes cars were just a level above in how they switched on and maintained their tires, which meant they were able to have more tire life. Perez is another driver who was able to make up places throughout the race, even placing himself in contention for podium. But it seems the W14 still had enough pace to keep Perez at bay. In the front, Verstappen had a quiet race, putting about 20 seconds on Hamilton, who was behind. So a win was not in the cards for Hamilton in this race. Ferrari, on the other hand, had a race to forget for both drivers. The team came in with upgrades hoping to make a step forward, and it looked like they did in quali, with Sainz placing second. But race pace was just not there for both cars, because Sainz fell behind in the race, eventually ending 5th behind Perez, and Leclerc was just unable to make an impression to break into the top 10. Alpine, who has been making some steps, stayed more or less where they started on the grid, so they won't be proud of this race, but also don't have a reason to be disappointed. In this race, the biggest winners will have to be Mercedes. As I stated in the grid prediction, I felt this team had what it takes to be the second best in this race because of the pace they had in Monaco. And with the double podium, the only question left to be answered is if Mercedes is really back on top of things in order to take the fight to Red Bull. Another noteworthy drive was by Zhou, who managed to get 9th, having started 13th. It definitely was a hard-fought points position for him, especially with Tsunoda, so he will be heading to Canada very proud of himself. The biggest losers in this race would have to be Ferrari and Aston Martin. These two teams were just lacking in race pace and seemed to have fallen behind Mercedes in the race for second in the championship. Although Aston Martin's race wasn't as bad as Ferrari, this track was noted as being one that will suit the car's characteristics. But now we can only wait and see if in the next race there will be a change. Now we move on to Canada, where some teams will be bringing in more updates for more excitement. And with that, it has been a very special Spanish Grand Prix. So thank you for watching this video, and bye for now.